in particular to discuss the power plant, the post office, and the waste management land, the future use of it. So we'll look forward to your comments. If you'll call the roll, Tammy, please.
Mr. Yam?
Here.
Mrs. Burdick?
Here.
Mr. Holton?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. Denanio?
Here.
Mrs. Sheepers?
Here.
Mr. Giuliano?
Here.
Mr. Cunningham?
Here.
Mr. Snyder? Mr. Lanier? Mr. Walker?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Opening statements, Mr. Giuliano.
Thank you, Dick. Evening, everyone. My name's Tom Giuliano, and Chairman of the Marine Commission. Thanks all for coming. We have a really unique and an exciting opportunity, I think, this evening. We have 3 pieces of property that are available for recreational use. 2 are on the lagoon, and the other is adjacent to this property. That's the old former post office annex. Together, they represent a tremendous potential for our community. And tonight, all of us have an opportunity to determine their best use. We need your help. Our citizens are the primary users of our waterfront and will have the most creative ideas, we believe. Naturally, the city also has a few requirements. First, the primary use of the land is to be for recreation. And second, the land needs to generate income for the city. Now, the majority of this meeting is public comment. Discussion by commission members will come last based on time available. And I'd like to now pass it back to Dick. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're going to move right along. What I would like to do, you'll see on the overhead here, this is public workshop number 3 of 3. And what's up there are already usages that people have suggested. This is page 1, and we have, has everybody had a chance to read this? Last time they couldn't read it, so.
Still can't read it.
Still can't read it?
No, pretty small.
All right. I'll get this up here a little quicker, closer. I'll read through it real quick. Suggested usage is another marina or extension of city marina, community center with a river walk around it, a riverside type park, facilities for large events, amphitheater, something like another environmental learning center, boat ramps and fishing piers, marina with a restaurant as a secondary use, nautical rental concession, excursion business that does sightseeing, charters, or fishing trips, water park with pools, slides, paddle boats, etc., casino, which we know is not going to be allowed, mixed-use commonality, a promenade plaza-type landscaping setup. Professional planners, consultants were suggested. Keep the height restriction, green space, bait shop, bicycle rental area, paddleboard, kayak launch, kayak rentals, youth sailing accommodation, museum to exhibit Vero Man, what they're finding over there, access concern, dry storage racks for kayaks, small sailboats, etc., a boatyard, wedding venue, small hotel on the postal annex property, traffic study management, and to work with the Treasure Coast Planning Council. Since then, somebody has approached me about considering swapping the land where, what am I thinking about?
Yeah.
Good. The Vero Beach Yacht Club property, to move that, to swap it out with the power plant land. That's just an added suggestion. So with that, we're going to open it up to public comment. So you're welcome to come talk to us.
Got to put the cheaters on. My name is Doug Skeet. I live at 1820 Tarpon Lane, E102. I'm here as a resident of Vero Beach and also as president of the Tarpon Island Condo Association. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to provide input on these most important parcels of land. A friend of mine once told me that the secret for a successful speech is to be brief, be blunt, and be gone. I will try my best to live up to this criteria. I attended the first input session regarding these properties and got a little nervous when I left. For my first point tonight, I want to state the obvious. There are hundreds upon hundreds of residences very close by and adjoining the selected properties. I have not heard this mentioned. Let's for a moment look not at the properties to be developed, but to look off the selected properties. These three parcels are surrounded closely by residences. When I say closely, I truly mean close homes, are separated from the proposed development by only a narrow canal, only a street width. In addition, there are residences on three sides of the parcels. Let's look to the north. A narrow canal width, and you have Tarpon Island condos, Cobia Drive homes, Ribaro homes, and a little further north you have Vero Isle canal homes. To the west, a street width away, you have Pine Tree Village, Vero Beach Landing apartments. Adjacent to the south side is Fairlane Harbor. Three sides with residences as close as you can possibly get. Development noise pollution of any kind must be a high consideration. At the first meeting I heard suggested restaurants. That's great. I heard watercraft activities. That's great. Then I heard bars. That's not so great. Then I heard bands. Certainly not great. And then possibly an amphitheater. A big boo. As much as I like Riverside Cafe under the Barber Bridge for lunch and dinner, on the nights they have bands playing, we can hear them at 11 o'clock and midnight at our condo near the Lloyd Bridge. Yes, sound travels from one bridge to the other with the quiet of the night. There are no residences near Riverside Cafe, but across the water we get a free concert when the band is playing. Riverside Theater hosts the Comedy Club monthly. They have an outside band. The music can be heard near the Lloyd Bridge. An outside band playing or any noise pollution on any of these three properties under consideration would be deafening to the residences adjoining the properties. What would be appropriate for the parcels? I wish I was smart enough to know. To rattle off idea 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and the project could be done. But I'm not that smart. But I do know that Vero Beach is not the first municipality to own land on the waterfront. There are hundreds of outstanding quality waterfront developers in America. We can research and see what they've done. You can look at the areas they've developed. Develop the Vero Beach property with high-end quality or don't develop it at all. The property needs to be a combination of smartly designed commercial properties with plenty of public space. Currently, where the public parks their car at the power station to view the manatees, that area and the entire power plant canal side could be a walkway down the lagoon to view the beauty along the canal side, the porpoises, the manatees, the many different kinds of birds, and yes, the sharks, could be viewed along the newly built walkway. A quality lagoon-side restaurant similar to the former lobster shanty, now lost forever, could be built with lagoon views. Similar tax-producing property, commercial waterfront properties could be built in the area. The last thing we need is another drugstore or gas station at the corner of 17th Street and Indian River Boulevard. Tarpon Island Condo Association stands ready to assist in any way possible for this important neighborly development. Thank you for your time. Be brief, be blunt, be gone.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. This is the opportunity for you to speak. Go ahead.
Okay. Can I use the overhead? Yeah.
You need to slide it. There you go.
Just slide a little again. Here you go.
Sorry, folks, my writing was much larger. I should have made it larger. You guys see it back there? No?
I have to read it.
Yeah, so I'll go through it. Okay, so I did talk last month's meeting.
Can I get your name,
I'm sorry,
please?
Steve Cox.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry. And tonight I'm here mostly to talk about just the power plant property. We're looking for, or what we're doing, we're proposing a non-motorized watercraft launch facility, and that property works best for the kayak launch area. Where the youth selling is over on the water treatment plant property, that's a good location for them because it gets more of a fetch there. The breeze comes across the lagoon, gives them more wind for sailing, which makes it less favorable for kayaking, paddleboarding because it is windier on that side. Where on the north side of the bridge, we got that little, there's an island that's right out by the channel that cuts the fetch in half, so the wave action on the power plant property is much less. I paddled it before the last meeting that we talked. So since the last meeting, we've come together with a few of us groups of the paddleboarders and kayakers in the community, putting together what we're calling the Indian River Paddle Sports Association. We're geared towards, one of our goals is to improve access to the Indian River Lagoon for non-motorized watercraft. One of the things that there's a few in the city, there's a few in the county, some are okay, but what we got in the beginning was kind of the leftover pieces where we used the boat ramp because there's not a place next to it, or we have a little grass spot next to the boat ramp. So we want to kind of develop in the future areas that are just water sport, non-powered water sports launch facilities, separate from the other guys. It makes the power boaters happy, it makes us happy too. Everybody's kind of separated too. So what we're looking at is on the northeast corner of the power plant property, facing the canal in the east corner, right there, a 50-foot wide sandy beach facing east, on the east side facing the lagoon. Good thing about our launch facilities is they're really low cost as far as putting them in. Take out the rocks that's there now along the shoreline, put in a truckload of sand, and you've got a launch facility. Everything else is already there. The grassy area there, the parking will come in later with the planning for that. But it's a very easy spot to put that there. The grassy area between the launch area and unloading, which is already there. A U-shaped unloading area just outside the normal traffic flow, which would kind of flow in. I mean, you guys, there's a little picnic pavilion that's down there by the water on that northeast corner. Somewhere in that area. I actually have a view of that too. I'll show you in a minute. And then parking for up to 30, 50 vehicles, depending on the use. On the north-facing part of that same corner, so this is your corner here. East side would be the public. North side of the corner would be either for the nautical rental concession, paddleboards, kayaks, rowboats, sailboats. All that could fit in that area there. Same thing, just a small 50-foot wide sandy beach. This one would be facing north, facing the canal side. That way the public would have, the only downside what I said is the first part is free. That would be a user free. Everything else will pay for itself. The water sports activity concession could be you have kayaks, paddleboards in that area. They'll be renting from the city. So you'll get an annual rental fee from the concessionaire. The only thing that would need to be there, if he needed a storage building for his kayaks, paddleboards, that kind of stuff, I think the concessionaire should pay for that part if he's going to have his stuff stored there. Parking for vehicles, you need another parking area for trailers and vehicles with trailers to fit outside of the regular parking, so they're not taking up space, but also gives them an area where they can pull into and unload safely. And then the third thing is going to be using the two existing buildings I talked about last time. They're on the northwest corner of the property. I talked to Ted Fletcher from the electric department the first time, and he said they could be left there. They're used for maintenance and storage now. So they're pretty good sized buildings. I did talk with somebody at the city marina a couple days ago, and they have say like 102 rental spots, and they get somewhere that's like $16.50, I think, or something per spot. Those buildings themselves, each one would probably hold about 150 spots. If you up the $16.50 to say 20 a month, because now you're in an enclosed building instead of out in the elements like the racks over the marina, you could go up to 20 a month. Estimated rental income for the city would be $3,000 per month per building. Estimated, if you're at capacity, you'd be working about $72,000 a year between the two buildings. One could be for kayaks, paddleboards, that kind of stuff. The other one could be for sailboats, small motor boats. I've heard talk of a bike rental concession. It'd be one of those buildings would be a good spot for him to base out of. Things like that. So the second and the third one will both generate income for the city, with the first one just being a public launch for the people that use publicly. So the view that I have is this shows the property itself, and if you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, I did this by hand, so it's not very good at this. But anyway, the bottom right-hand corner is 1A. That would be the public watercraft launch area on the east corner there. 2A off to the right, area for the non-motorized water sports activity concession. 2B could be the building, if he needed to build a building for his storage, could be in that same area. So we're just looking at the small area of that little corner, that's the footprint. The picnic building is already there, so that could be used by the people who are using the public launch area there. And then the only thing with the next two buildings is they are following, actually all the way back up to the top there, next to the blue building, you'll see 3B and 3B, the two 3Bs are on the right-hand side. Those are the two buildings that are used for storage now that, according to Mr. Fletcher from the elected, they could be left there. They don't need to be. So less thing have to spend taking them down, generate money for the city by leaving them up. The only thing is, it is a long distance from there down to the launch area. If you'll see right alongside, it's kind of blocked with here, but I looked at the Manatee launch the other day, at the Manatee site the other day, and noticed there's a sidewalk that runs from that section all the way down that north side. That little, what you see on that white on there, that's the sidewalk, which is kind of blocked by the trees. So a couple of, we use them in Central Florida a lot. Two-wheeled carts for rolling the kayaks. We have a long carry on some of the launch areas, and so you could have sorry, I'll slow down for a second. You could have the carts there, and then they could roll them all the way down to the launch area. Or something else that you may want to think about for the future is a dock, a floating dock is here. That's the bottom of D in the pages if you got the handout. But there's a floating watercraft launch dock put out by Easy Dock, which is actually made here in Florida, and they're ADA approved. So there's that kind of brings the price. The price of that is about $30,000 with the ADA improvements, about 17 or 18 without them. But if you're in the city, you'd have to have those in there. That could be put down at that far end down there by where the three buildings are, so people wouldn't have to come all the way down to the other launch to launch their kayaks, and it would give that handicap availability right there. I think in your Did you get the packet that I handed out? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You'll see a page on that, the back for the EC Dock thing. I talked to the guy who's out of Fort Myers. I think there's another guy that's closer that has a territory for this area. And they work very well. They work with a lot of the cities. There's one down at the Halapoke Park down in St. Lucie County, and there's one out at Lake Kissimmee State Park. If you want to take a look at it and see what those actually docks look like, or you have a kayak and you want to try one out, that's where they are, the closest ones to us.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
Of the almost 17 acres there, how much of this property, with all your proposals, would you expect to use for?
I wouldn't say, I don't know what that section there is, but you're maybe 75 or so feet on each corner and back a bit. So that little square right there, I would say is a third of an acre, half an acre. I don't know the dimensions of what But you wouldn't need more than 100 feet along that shoreline there. I didn't go all the way to the corner. I kind of brought it in from the corner a little bit because there are mangroves that are pretty well established on that shoreline there, but there's several spots where there are no mangroves at all, and it's the heavy brick and rock that's been there to stabilize the shoreline. So there's, but you could work around that. You wouldn't have to do the mitigation. If you just took out the areas where there were no mangroves, you wouldn't have to do the mitigation for the mangroves, I think. So there's one spot there where 1A is, and there's two spots over where 2A is. They're separated by a stand of mangroves, but you could have a launch area on either side.
Just another question, Steve. And
Yes.
Thanks for your information here. It sounds like this is something you are prepared to do fairly quickly. I don't know what your time frame is on something like this.
All of those could be done very quickly. I mean, like I say, it doesn't take much. The rock has to be taken out, cleaned up the area around that area, and then add in some sand or just stabilize the shoreline, whatever it needs there. The beach out, the shore, the bottom out in front of it is mostly sandy. I didn't find any seagrasses out there, no rocks or oysters when I paddled it last time. I was there at high tide, so it's hard to see what it looked like at low tide, but it's pretty hard packed sandy bottom.
I recognize
Shallow.
that this is a multi-year project we're looking at.
Oh, yes.
We don't know how many years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
If you did get started early in the process, there may, ultimately have to be a change.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what that is.
Oh, sure.
Now, is that, something that you could live with if that was the case?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of areas that a public launch facility could go. There's lots of areas in that park that a concessionaire could go. I chose those just to be far off to the corner, as possible, kind of out of the way. I'm assuming if anything happens as far as power boats or something, as a launch or something happened there, that would happen on that south side of that bridge. That's the deep water area. That's a concrete bulkhead area. I assume that would be the best place for the power boats because the other areas are pretty shallow.
You mentioned there were several groups getting together. Obviously the kayak people and the paddle boards, and how many groups and who are they? Just because you're representing those, I recognize.
Yeah, I'm just one. I'm an outfitter in the city. There's 5 or 6 of us that are joining. A few are the local paddlers are here. Toby and Joe here from the Vero Beach Power Squadron. They also have a paddle group. They do 20, 30. 5 people at a time. Everything they have a kayak trip. Mm-hmm. So it's nice. That's nice to have somebody like that where they have they're power boaters, but they also are kayakers also. So you get both sides of the equation.
I understand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who would manage the storage rental operation?
I would think the city, or you could lease it out to the concessionaire maybe if he wanted to handle that end of it. I didn't really think about that as far as I don't know how the marina does it, but it's pretty simple. I think as you have them labeled as which ones are which. You just keep track of it. I talked to the city. They bill every 3 months quarterly. We take care. Yes, sir.
Now, how many members do you have, or are you going to be growing?
We're going to be growing. This is new. We just started the association. We're just putting it all together since the last meeting. We've been thinking about doing something in this line for years, for the last year or so, but just haven't really put it together. But seeing what's going on with this property and things in the future for the city and the county, I think it's just something that we need to be able to be a part of. So as a part of the association, we want to work with the local cities and counties to help and assist and help fund any of these launch areas. We're not looking for free. We're looking to help out.
Could we get Tim's response to the manager thing?
Yes, we do our own billing. Kayaks we do quarterly. Other things we do monthly.
But you have to be on site to show them where it is and make the arrangements?
Yes. Yeah.
So we don't
they come in and fill out an application. And,
we don't have anyone on site at this location, so that'd be something coming off that profit number.
Could do that, or you could look at him. You could put it in with the
woman raising her hand. If you come up,
yeah.
you're going to have to identify yourself.
Also, where's the parking in this diagram here?
I'm thinking for us, what we would need would be access close to the 1A in this area here, right through here, for parking coming in at an angle, kind of a loop coming in for unloading, and then parking somewhere, anywhere out there where all things are now, or anything down through here, wherever parking ends up. But it doesn't have to be that close. The only thing we really need is a unloading area relatively close to the water, and then parking could be 50, 100 feet away. If you're going kayaking, you got enough athletic to go kayaking, you should be able to walk 50 feet from your parking spot. So.
Yeah, sure. So it's more acreage than what he said.
Yeah, I wasn't including the parking
Right.
in the acreage, yeah, because I assume the parking is going to be for the park. It wouldn't be just for that area. It'd be anybody who's using the park would be able to, all the parking would be open to anybody. It wouldn't be just for the kayak launch area.
All right, any more questions?
Yeah, Bill, I think you have Mr. Johnson.
First of all, love the idea. I don't know if this is on or not, but I'm a surfer. I'm a stand-up paddle boarder. I love the water. I'm on the water every day. I go to Fort Pierce and just to get my paddleboard from parking lot, and I'm a pretty tough guy and I can carry a lot.
Yeah.
But that's a trek.
Mm-hmm.
And that's double the distance from Fort Pierce parking lot out to the beach.
You mean the storage?
Well,
where the storage is?
If you were to, I look at, and part of this is a question to you. Is it a deal breaker if you don't get that corner? Only because as you look at the space,
Mm-hmm.
that's just prime
spot, yeah.
prime spot.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you may end up with a multi-use restaurant, views, all of that prime areas there. Whereas back in the corner in your 3B, 3A,
Mm-hmm.
3B.
Yeah, the 2 3Bs, yeah.
Yeah, the 3Bs back there, it just seems to make more sense to centralize it.
The only reason I didn't go back there is because of it's heavily lined with mangroves in that area. So I don't know what the mitigation is on that, but it's from right there at the bridge where the manatee viewing area is, all the way east. At first, especially you can see, especially when you get down past the blue building, that first half of that section is really heavily with red mangroves through that area, and then as you get closer down, it gets more sparse and there's more openings. And that's what I look for, was areas that were already open that we didn't have to clear out mangroves. So that's why I ended up out here on the point, because once you start going west along that canal, further back toward that area, it gets more really thick with the mangroves.
Because at first you talked about the sidewalks, but now you're talking about being able to bring cars in, which means roads and drop-off area,
Mm-hmm.
turnaround area, and again, prime. If you're cruising by on a boat or a visitor on the water coming by, and that's all you see.
You see a bunch of colorful kayaks on the water, yeah.
Right. It may not attract you to stop, whereas if it were a different. I like the idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's the location I'm concerned
Yeah.
with. And the question to you is it a deal breaker if it gets moved?
No.
To integrate it into this project is fabulous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, actually, I understand this is all in the beginning, and between now and 2 years from now, or whatever things happen, things are going to change. And that's what I said. This is just our thoughts, our ideas. If if we could put everything on the canal side, take off 1A, and put everything down the canal side.
And have we addressed the mangrove issue?
No.
So that's kind of up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I know there is mitigation you can do with them, but I being more eco-friendly, I would rather leave the mangroves there and go to a spot that we don't have to take them out. Yeah.
See, all this will be picked up when you go through the design phase.
Yeah.
As you incorporate the different usages and things like that, as far as what fits into the property.
And that's one of the reasons why I didn't go to the point of adding in the parking and stuff on what I showed there, because I'm not a designer and understand the traffic flow and how everything has to move and that kind of stuff. So I didn't put all that in there. Basically, there's going to be road coming through there anyway, I would assume. So only thing actually we would need is that if you had a road coming through the property, is just a little veer off to it, so it makes a little loop as close as possible to the launch facility, wherever it may be. That's one of the things we find with some of the launch areas is you have to park and unload and then carry, like you say, 100 yards, sometimes more, to get down to the water. Versus if you have an unloading area, you unload there, put your paddleboard, your kayak in the grass, go park your car, and then come back. And that way you're just carrying your water bottle and your hat and your sunscreen with you, and you're not carrying your kayak and everything else with you. And that's very common. We did that Round Island Park. The county did that for us. They used to have it back a ways. You had to park up top and carry down about 300 feet to get down there. They opened it up, so now you can drive down within about 30, 40 feet of the water. So it just makes life a lot easier. I mean, kayaks most of us have plastic kayaks. They're not light. They're all mine are in the 50, 60 pound range. My doubles are 85 to 90 pounds. I roll them on carts. I don't carry them anymore. That's why I knew about the cart thing, because I have carts, and that's one thing. If they use a story building and wherever the launch facility is on that side, whether it be in the canal, whatever, they could still use that sidewalk. And if they wanted to launch down, and the other thing is, if you wanted to develop all that and not have a beach launch facility, then we go back to the kayak dock, the easy dock launch. That could go anywhere along the canal. And it does. All you have to do is open up a small opening in the mangroves to get the walkway through, and then everything else is outside. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Really, what we're trying to do in these workshops is just collect ideas, because all the ideas that have been submitted will be forwarded to City Council, and then if they choose, going forward, their process is probably going to be to hire a designer, incorporating all these ideas. And at that, as a designer, from what we've learned is that they will have additional public meetings, to refine the ideas. And they'll come up with a couple of, alternative plans and move things around and everything like that, trying to best utilize the property. So, go ahead. I didn't want to keep you up there too long.
I'm Barbara McGrath. I live on Cobia Drive, which is one of the canals off of this canal that you're addressing on the north side of the power plant. That canal is not very wide, and into that canal feeds the canals from Robalo, Cobia, and Tarpon Drive with boats. Now, you're talking about a pretty big operation with a lot of paddle boards and kayaks, and I'm just wondering of the congestion in there, as well as, now, I don't know if the manatees are going to come back now that the power plant does not exist, but I just think that that's going to be a big danger to many people in and out of a fairly narrow canal with this kind of a operation. It is narrow, and there are mangroves along there too. That's all I want to say as a consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Steve, would you mind making sure that we have your contact information before you leave? Thank you.
It's all goes.
We have it all. Good.
I'm Herb Whittall. I live in 19 Park Avenue in Vero, Isles, and I have to agree with everything that the man from Tarpon Island said. But what I would like, and I think would be good, and we're missing, is a restaurant on the river. And looking at this picture, the restaurant should be over by where the cooling towers are, so it's furthest away from Tarpon Island, because even a restaurant makes noise. And I'll agree, you can't have a band, because we fought with the across the river there where they had bands. They finally had to put windows in to close it in to keep the noise down. And if you have an outdoor band, we can hear the bands from the Bonefish Grill. Doesn't bother me. I don't mind that. But if you have a band there, the people on Riamar are the ones that are going to bitch, because noise goes across that water and actually amplifies. So they'll be even worse off. So the other thing, of course, is you're going to have to move the transfer station, and of course you're going to take down the thing. It'll be a few years before we ever get around to doing this, because you got to get rid of the power plant, the controls in the power plant, and I assume they would probably be cheapest to move them to where the post office annex is, because that's close, and it's not on the water. It's not and also it has access problems. Trying to get in and out of that place is hard. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Got any questions?
Questions? Thank you.
Hi, Commissioners Council. How are you? My name is Charlie Wilson, 3815 7th Lane in Vero Beach, and tonight I'm representing the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce. The Indian River County Chamber of Commerce came before the City Council on the Tuesday 2 weeks ago and mentioned that they had put together a task force that studied this particular issue. I don't disagree with their task force. They are largely made up of people who have property in the area and have an interest in the property in the area, and they have every right to do that. They did say that they weren't coming this evening. I hope they change their mind and do come. They told the city council that y'all weren't interested in hearing what they had to say, so they were going to go directly to the city council. I think it's important that we engage all of the community in this process. There are actually 4 properties that we're talking about here. We're talking about the power plant property. We're talking about the wastewater property. We're talking about the postal property across the way. But this also how this impacts the manufactured home community just to the south. We know that if there are major changes in these other properties, there's probably going to be a major change in that property. There are still so many other considerations as God help me, I agree with Mr. Woodall. It's going to take years for us to get this done, and I'm sorry that it's going to take that. But the electric station is an important consideration, and that still hasn't been settled. And so we need to make sure that we maintain some options, because we could be making a multi-million-dollar mistake if we do something that doesn't continue to give us options, particularly on that particular item. And all these ideas are such good ideas, and they would be so lovely for our community and so much fun. But we really do have to keep into consideration that very complicated thing that is the power plant. The other is moving the wastewater plant. Now, there's going to be a move in Fort Pierce to get state and federal assistance in moving their wastewater treatment plant off the river. And it may be able to, there are some discussions that may be able to tie our 2 efforts together. I don't think anybody is all out to keep the wastewater plant on the river. I think if we'd all rather it be somewhere else if we could do that. And I can tell you that there's some activity for that. One of the main things is with all these properties, it's really sort of an all of the above situation. Obviously, it's going to be the highest and best use for the people of Vero Beach, not necessarily a commercial, but for the people of Vero Beach. This decision is a 100-year, multi-generational decision. And this is the kind of decision that can turn a really pretty community into a really ugly one fast. If you've ever been to Riviera Beach, you can see what happens to somebody that makes a bad decision having to do with the property around a power plant. So it's something that we need to consider very carefully, not just in what's over the next couple of years. But I do want to bring up one item that you may not have heard, and that is when the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce bought in the Nina and the Pinta to come and visit. You know, there was 12,000 of our closest friends that came out to do that, and a lot of good educational opportunities. And since then, when we did the Pirate Festival, the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce did the Pirate Festival, one thing we learned is the incredible shortage of deep water access in the city of Vero Beach. There are only 2 places, and that is at the marina, one little stretch, and at this site. If we lose the deep water access at this site, we have lost it forever and ever and ever, and it will never be replaced. So in any design that we ever have, we have to remember that area where they used to bring in the fuel barges is the only deep water access in Vero Beach, other than at the marina. We were not able to use this for the Nina and the Pinta. We were trying to because national security, Homeland Security wouldn't let people on the property, and that is. But in the future, when you're looking at a plan, there are going to be times when you're going to want to bring in boats that do weddings and boats that are here for people visiting our community. Remember, part of the reason businesses started here is because people came here to visit. And I would suspect that we kind of want those people to come and visit and have a place to put their great big boat. So anyway, it's just a note to ourselves to remember that you've got the off-water property, which is the postal annex. Put the off-water things somewhere else. The idea of a land swap, is something that we should keep open with whomever. We may be able to increase our land value of the waterfront land. The waterfront property is not going away. I mean, will never be made again. And as much as I appreciate, I've been over to Tarpon Island, spent a lot of time over there, and we need to protect our community. We certainly do, but it's not going to be bird watching. So we've got to use our heads when we do this. And frankly, please keep in mind that deep water, because it's probably one of the most valuable things next to the power plant.
Can I ask you a question, Charlie?
Sure.
On that Deepwater Canal, can you get access from the waterway into that canal?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
When I went over there, it looked like it was very shallow.
Mm-hmm. There is a channel. We used it for the boat parade, and there is a channel. It may be in ill repair. I understand from some of my lifeguard people that we work with that when they bring the barges in, they pushed a lot of silt up into there. But it's not supposed to be that way. I don't know the details. I would have to refer that to the Marine Commission and the people that do it all the time. But I do know that the first visit 10 years ago by some replica ships, that's where they stayed, and that's where they were able to get in there for that. They're bringing up a boat in February 2nd, that's about 90 feet long. It's a beautiful boat for a couple of private parties, and they almost weren't able to do it, which brings some people from outside the community, because there was only one spot that they could be in, and Tim was very kind that he was able to clear one day, but it was going to stay for a week, and it can only stay for 2 days because of there's no access for deep water. Okay. Thank you.
How deep do you that water is that we're discussing?
I don't know what the soundings were, Tim. I have to look at the old charts. The Lifeguard Association went and made soundings there.
Going into the power plant?
Yeah.
It's around 5-6 feet right now. It'd probably need to be dredged in a few areas.
Yeah, it was enough to take the barges full of fuel.
That's what I thought, no more than 5 or 6 feet. So right now you're so limited.
That was more than that.
Yeah.
I think it was probably deeper.
It was much deeper. I think it was 8 to 12 at one point.
Yeah, they got a shoaling problem there.
Yeah.
At one time?
Yeah.
Was that deep?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
Well, they
like
bring
every
in
3 years.
The barges are 12 feet tall.
Tim, how frequently do they dredge it?
I don't think that, as far as that area goes, there hasn't been any dredging since the barges went in there. And the barges going in there pretty much kept it dredged.
Mm-hmm. But the point is, the structure is there, the infrastructure is there, the deep water is there, the access is there, and that's the only place it's there. Even if it has to have maintenance, it's the only place to go to maintain it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate it.
Herb Whitall again. One other quick thing. I live on a canal off the main canal, and unfortunately, from between the bridges, there's a 30-mile speed limit on boats, and the big boats go through there, and they put up a huge wake, which comes into our canal, and will come into here. Now, you're all set, Tim, because you got an island out there, and it's a low speed, but out here, it is not. And so, bringing in boats and doing that kind of thing is going to be problematic, and trying to make a marina there the same thing because of the wake that you're going to get, unless you make a slow speed between the bridges, and that'll upset a lot of people. Thank you.
Herb, I just want to mention to Herb, you bring in a 90-foot boat, you're not going 30 miles an hour between those two bridges. I guarantee you. Thank you.
No, but other people are when you're sitting. That's the problem.
All right, next.
Hello, my name's Chris Woodruff. I own Paddles by the Sea, the paddleboard kayak place behind the cafe. Business owner in town, but I'm fairly new. But I've been on the water my whole life, and I've seen a lot of developments. I would love to see this be a mixed-use type facility. That would be fantastic, and I think the best for the city. I support Steve's idea for that corner. I think that would be great. But I'd also like to see a restaurant in here and a boat launch. And I think there's really room to do all of it and have them kind of intertwined together. And I like the marina idea too, off of the restaurant. And we have a marina at Riverside Cafe that does pretty well. And I agree with the boats as far as a wake zone. My dock is right next to the Barber Bridge, and my dock is the easy dock that Steve mentioned. And it moves. One corner of it actually lifts out of the water when a good boat comes by. So I could see there being an issue with that also. So that's either breakwater, like Fort Pierce just made, would be a good idea. You can even repurpose some of the spoils that we would use to make our launch. There's some really good opportunities if you're creative here, I think. But that's pretty much all I had to say on that. So,
thank you.
Good evening. Victor DiMattia, 29 Sailfish Road, Vero, Isles. I'm also the chairman of the Facility Commission for the Youth Sailing Foundation. I know a little bit about things down there. First, Vero Isles is R1A. The setback to commercial is 150 feet. That canal is probably 60, 70 feet wide. So that means that corner can't be developed for commercial. Second, do you have a wind speed where you can't send people out in a kayak?
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
Depends on the wind direction, but anything
from the east.
From the east, 15 plus.
15 plus.
20, yeah. Depends on what you do. If you're doing kayaks or paddleboards. Paddleboards take handle less wind.
I stop at 15.
Okay, we sail 5 to 6 days a week out of there. 800 feet away from where they want to put a launch ramp. We have terminated sailing 4 times this year. We have 14-foot boats, very seaworthy. They're raced at sea, very skilled operators, and when it gets to be 20, we close down operations. We close down operations about 12 times between September and now. We sail in 15 to 20 knots, an average of 3 days a week since September. It's been very windy from the east. We have a solid 1-foot chop at our launch ramps. I commute by outboard from Vero Isles down to there and back occasionally. It's not smooth water, and it blows hard in there a lot of the time. That's something you really have to be concerned about. The Indian River Rowing Club, with 60-foot boats, had trouble getting out of there. It was so bad that they moved up by the Barber Bridge. They're evacuating that facility because their 8-man, 60-foot boats have trouble handling the wakes there, the wind and the waves. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the last call if anybody wants to say something. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. and Mr. Chair. Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue. I'd like to remind everyone that this land is protected in the charter. Right now it belongs to the people of the city of Vero Beach. One of the things, I heard tonight was prime area. Going forward, whatever you decide is the prime area, if you choose to have professional planners come in, I'd like to see how much you would consider prime area, and also that you leave some of the prime area open for the general population to go and view the river. Someone stood here tonight and spoke about how beautiful the river looks. You look to the north and to the south, it's just beautiful. And let me remind you all, we don't have that much space that we can use on the riverfront as far as what I call regular folks, where you don't have to pay. And we want to know going forward, how much will you give over, how much you're going to recommend for commercial development, where they hold the leases and all, and how much will be left for the people. What can we use? And again, our space even along the ocean front and riverfront is extremely limited. We don't have too many places that we can launch our boats where we don't have to pay. And also the more activity that you recommend for that area there, you're going to bring more traffic in. You all know where the area is. It's very busy. You heard tonight about your surrounding neighborhoods. How much use do you actually want to put on all those corners? Eventually, the wastewater treatment plant will be relocated. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer. But, thinking out in the future, and remember, there's going to be people behind us all that are going to need that riverfront. So I would just ask you, going forward, I heard that word prime. We want to know how much you're going to let us use, where we're not going to have to pay. Right now, anything to do with rec, I heard about the paddleboard, the kayaking, all what I consider very low impact. That's very doable. I think going forward, if there's some things that we could do here in the near future with maybe the paddle boarding and the kayaking, maybe that's something that we can look at. We heard that there's a little channel out there where the barges used to come in. It was used in the past for boats that needed the extra space. Well, that's something maybe we could do now to dredge it a little bit, where some of the larger boats for different things that happen throughout the community could use that. That maybe is something that's doable now. What I'm hoping is going forward, especially if you choose to have professional planners come in and help and you have more meetings, we need to leave as much space, open space, for the regular people to use and enjoy now and much later in the future. You look around this place, we just don't have that much. Our beaches, they're beautiful, but they're limited. Most of the stuff over on the island side, when you go along A1A, has been taken up over the years, and it's privately owned. We don't have that much room. It looks like a lot because we don't have a lot of high rises over there. We're holding down the height. And the other thing going forward too, I'd like to see it spec'd in there. I'd like to recommend that we do keep the heights down. I don't want to get into too many of the technicals now, but if you go through and you study some of the areas that had situations like ours that had height restrictions, those height restrictions were challenged because they had things sitting on the property that occupied higher space. It's called air rights. So going forward, it needs to be locked down. If the city's going to do anything, we maintain our height, even though you're going to remove the stacks sooner or later, that's still they occupy the high space up there. So anyway, so there is case law that anybody with enough money sometimes can challenge cities or counties with their height restrictions. So that you need to think about. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Please come forward.
Hi, my name's Rachel Baum. I live on Causeway Boulevard, and I'm a horrible public speaker, so bear with me. There have been so many great ideas put out for this property, and the main thing that I would like to put out, my plea to you guys, is just whatever this property becomes, is that it's done in a very eco-friendly way. Our water is very important to this area, and I was so proud to be a new resident of Vero when the ordinances for fertilizer regulations were going through, when the dog park was actually set aside as usable property for the residents here and their dogs to keep both happy and healthy. And I really hope that that kind of mentality will continue with the use of this property. Thanks.
Going once. Anybody else have anything else they want to say? All right, there's a lot to talk about, so. Go ahead, you want to say something?
No, I'd like to open it up to the commission now, because we kind of held you folks back a little bit to let the citizens in, so it's a good time for you to come up with some ideas or comments. Okay.
You're about as quiet as everybody else.
Not so talkative tonight, huh?
Okay. Bill Johnson. I'll comment just briefly in that I think this is moving the right direction in the sense that there's a lot of thought going into the planning aspect of it, and to realize that this, as was mentioned, is
a legacy, and so to develop it and to bring the right people in, maybe we have skills, we have experience, but there are others that have even greater experience, and to be able to tap into that, and to really be able to put a plan together, and then with all of these wonderful, great ideas, and then be able to present it to the public. But I think there needs to be continued input from the public. There's all the ideas to me seem pretty much no-brainers, but there's probably just an out-of-the-box fantastic idea that would be great for the surrounding neighborhoods, that would be great for the city, that would be a draw for people to come into the area, but also create safety at that intersection, which is, just last week, a pedestrian was hit just trying to cross the road there. And evening times are obviously going to be utilized there, I would imagine, quite a bit. And there'll be a lot of foot traffic through those intersections, and a lot of things to consider. So I love the direction that it's going, and I love the input, and I think we're going to need a lot more input as we look at hiring outside counsel or developers that have experience on the waterfront, and continue to keep the communication open with the public. But we need more input from the public too. I think there's still some great ideas out there that haven't been brought forth yet.
Thanks, Bill. Just to reiterate what Bill's saying and to support that, this is the very beginning. Sometimes you begin something and then you say, oh, we didn't get enough input. That's not the intent. So we really wanted to input. You notice that Dick and I were very quiet because it was your turn. Now, during the design stage, you're going to still be involved. There's going to be people that we're going to be asking for volunteers to get involved. So all the way through this process, citizens will be involved. And that's the most important thing. How long will it take? We don't know. It would be nice if we could get started on something early. I think if it made sense, recognizing that may change over time as the full design process comes to bear. But we really appreciate everyone spending the time. This is the very first step, and you will be involved and notified as and when we choose our partners to move us forward on this process, which is going to take some time. Okay, thanks very much.
Okay. The next step, actually, in this is that we're going to make a presentation to the City Council, is it February 22nd? Okay. And what we will do is present all the suggestions, that people have made, and then we will make a suggestion to City Council on how to proceed. Their options are, some of the options are they can they can use a land designer, to incorporate all these different ideas. And if they go that route, they will probably, a land designer will probably do, a charrette. Is everybody familiar with what charrettes are? And that's where it's important, your participation again will get very involved, because this is where you get intense on the design. You narrow it down and you come up with different alternatives. And once the design is completed, then it goes back to City Council and it gets adjusted many times. It's not fixed when it comes out. So that's why it's going to take several months before all of this, really comes to head. Now, the other option, the council has several options. One is if they use the Treasure Coast Planning Council, then they have to hire them directly. Or they can go to what they call an RFQ, RFP. A proposal, go out and hire a developer to do it. or they can go out and hire, through an RFQ, RFP, a land company, a land design company, engineers, et cetera, to do it. So council's going to have to make that decision. And all we're going to do is, take the collective of what you have told us and present it to council. And whoever they choose will use that information to build, going toward if they do charrettes, et cetera, to start developing a design. So, any questions from anybody? We're going to try and, our suggestion is incorporate as much of it as we can. And as you can hear, there are a lot of different ideas, and it's rather complex. And it's, the designer is going to have to come in and develop a master plan for all three pieces of land. And you've got one piece of land, the postal land X is available right now. The power plant land will probably be cleared, I would say, within a year. Other than the substation, something's going to have to be figured out what to do with the substation. And then, you get into the wastewater, probably several years, 5 to 10 years at least before they can move that. So it's a phased program that they're going to have to, come in and present to council as far as alternatives and what can be done. So we thank you for your participation and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.